Pledge of Allegiance, and Ms. Carmen Reynolds is going to say the prayer for us.
Dear Lord, bless this day and our ability to be here. Thank you for our members that are in attendance. Guide us in doing the work of the water system tonight and all the subsidiaries that we are involved with. Give us wisdom and patience, and as always, look after our first responders, our law enforcement, and our military. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Mark?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I want to thank everyone that did come out here tonight for this exciting meeting. So we do have a quorum. We have all 6 of the current board members in attendance tonight. The audio and video recorders are in use, and if anyone wants to to address the board, we just ask you fill out the member form sign-up sheet, which is currently in the lobby over there. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes and transcripts. And Mark, did you want to address that real quick?
Yeah, we were delayed in getting our transcripts, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the March 18th meeting.
And postpone the transcript.
I was going to make a separate motion to table the transcripts, but I'll combine it in one motion to approve the regular meeting minutes and table the transcript approval until our next meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion from the board? All right, hearing none. We have a motion second, so we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Mark. Approval of memberships. March, new memberships, 244. Canceled memberships were 212. Excuse me, and transfers, we had 1. Do I have a motion to approve the March new memberships?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. All right, we'll start off with unfinished business. 2024 consolidated financial audit, including state-mandated single audit presentation, and this will be from our good friend Kristen McAllister from Warren Everett.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Board, for having me here tonight. Once again, I'm Kristen McAllister. I'm a partner with Warren Everett CPAs. You've seen me a couple times at this point. I did enjoy the time I spent with you at the board retreat, and as I was telling Jeff, I'm really glad we spent that time to invest in your understanding of the system. Overall, as I told you, that the system did receive an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance we can provide, which means in our opinion, the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. We did not have any findings to report. There was no other non-compliance noted within our audit that we're bringing to your attention. We did have 2 comments in the prior year related to your inventory management and some items related to the club's year-end close process. Those items were resolved and improved significantly during this year. We've worked with management on those items. And there were significantly less audit adjustments that were posted in this year's audit versus last year's audit. The audit adjustments that we posted this year were more in a financial statement assistance manner versus correction of errors or anything else that brought to level a concern of a weakness within your internal control structure. And then once again, as I told you, that the audit process went significantly smoother this year than in the prior years. Overall, a couple key financial highlights for you tonight. On your balance sheet, we did discuss that approximately there's $105 million in your consolidated assets of the system, the club, and MESI. You did notice there was an increase in your cash held at year-end, and that was mostly due to your debt proceeds that were unspent at year-end. And corresponding, you saw an increase in your liabilities for the debt that you took on during 2024. As well, you had your current liabilities, which were increased based on the projects and contracts and retainage payable in progress at year end. And then as well, your income statement, when you look at that, you had an overall increase in your net income of approximately from 2.7 million to 5.6 million. And most of that did have increases within the club, significant increases in Messi's income and the systems operating revenues. And then you had an unusual item of your grant revenue this year, which was approximately 2.1 million. That wasn't offset by current year expenses on the income statement, as that was put into capital infrastructure programs on your balance sheet. And once again, I want to thank Barbara and Jeff and the team as well that helped with the audit, and they provided us great support and cooperation during the process. I'll welcome any questions you may have tonight.
Anyone have any questions for Kristen? Oh, it's mostly very good news.
As always, very thorough and easy to read, and good results. So that's what we like to see.
Thank you, Chris. Always a pleasure working with
Yeah.
you. And we need to thank the staff, because
Absolutely.
if it wasn't for them, then our financials would not be in the standing they're in. Thank you.
Yeah. Great job.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The staff recommends we approve the 2024 consolidated audited financial statements, including the single audit.
So move.
All right.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Hearing none, motion passes. Kristen, thank you so much for being here
I
tonight.
appreciate
We
you.
really appreciate it. All right. Item number 2, PCC sewer rehab contract, task order number 20. Mr. Krigler.
Yes, so this is another task order on our annual sewer rehab contract with PCC. We awarded this contract at the board meeting about a year ago. And this task order is for several items. The largest is repairs at lift station number 1, which we call Hemlock Duval, and not located at the intersection of Hemlock Drive and Duval Street there in Holly by the Sea. And what we're doing there is we're looking at essentially raising the top of the wet well and the valve vault. That lift station's in a low-lying area, so we're going to raise that up and also coat the interior of the wet well and the valve vault. It's no surprise that our sewer infrastructure is subject to sewer gases and corrosion, and it requires upkeep over the lifespan. So that's the big item, is the work at Hemlock Duval. There's also 2 other valve boxes. Valve boxes that we want to coat at Castlear, which is our number 3 lift station, and Pertania Circle, station number 36. And then the task order also covers leak repairs to 2 manholes in our gravity collection system. Tab 2 has the breakdown of the bid, and essentially these are the unit prices that are bid by PCC in the contract. So when we have work in the system we give them, we have set prices for these items, and they work up the work order, and since this one was over $25,000, we're bringing it before the board for consideration.
Have we looked at doing any of this work in-house, or is this all stuff that is specialty work that we have to?
Yeah, we talked about, so spraying these coatings is somewhat specialized. I don't think it's something we really have wanted to get into. The spray equipment is expensive, and it kind of requires maintenance. You got to buy the chemicals, store the chemicals. It typically requires a specialized trailer to carry the stuff around in. So it's been talked about. I don't think there's been a big push for it, though. As far as actually raising the wet well, that's more of a construction type item. So that would definitely probably something we would always kind of hire out, given probably the equipment needs for that. But yeah, the sewer rehab, those coatings, we probably don't want to get into that business.
Question, for the record, how many lift stations do we have?
It's around 70.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to approve Pensacola Concrete's task order number 20 for $81,455.88.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board, or any further questions? Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve PCC's task order number 20 for the sewer rehabilitation contract in the amount of $81,455.88. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. Thank you, Jeff. Next item on the agenda, Pauline of our Water Systems Annual Board Election Update. We're going to let our attorney, Mr. Will Dunaway, take this one.
Thank you, Mr. President. Last Friday, your canvassing board met. That, of course, consists of myself, Director Matthews, and the CEO, along with staff, to review the election that we just held. We will be making a formal update to you at the May board, but in essence, we reviewed the procedures. We're going to make some recommendations to you to modify a few of the forms that come out to your election policy. As you know, we start that process in August of each year by the board approving the election policy and the process for the annual meeting, and we'll be doing that again this year. Do want to note that, and is attached to your materials at tab 3, that on March the 28th of 2025, the company was sued with a complaint. The complaint was filed by Ms. Romy White, acting pro se. It is a single count complaint in the Circuit Court of Santa Rosa County, and its prayer for relief is that the election that was just held be invalidated and be redone based on the policies of the board and its election policy regarding proxies. The board has directed me to file an answer. We will timely file that on Thursday and move forward through that litigation to defend the action of the board. Are there any questions? That's the report of the canvassing committee and your legal counsel.
So he'll hear back from you around May timeline?
Correct. From the canvassing
recommendation?
board, it'll be on your board agenda with a recommendation for that.
Okay.
Now, that recommendation is going to include that we await a judge's order on this present litigation before we make any other modifications. We'll be requesting that the judge expedite that such that we have a ruling by the August time frame. And we think that's potentially doable.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Dunaway. We appreciate that. All right, next up, new business. We have CEO update, Mr. Krigler.
Yeah, a few items. Last month, the board voted to approve the Club of Hidden Creek's GPS system for the golf carts. That was kind of subject to legal review of the lease agreement. We did receive the lease agreement, and legal has reviewed it, and we did have a few comments. So we'll be going back to them with some questions, mostly about the warranties and just the nature of the lease and kind of remedies if the equipment doesn't work, things like that were just unclear. Both when I and legal reviewed it. So we'll be reaching out to them, and assuming we get satisfactory answers, we'll want to continue. But so more to come on that.
Okay.
Couple other items. So at last week's capital improvement meeting, we had some good discussion, including with Director Reynolds on vehicle purchases. Turns out there's a couple things going on. There's a Ford employee discount is being extended to anyone that wants to buy a Ford truck until June 2nd. Our purchasing director has done some digging, and she's looking at reactivating our what's called a fleet incentive number. So I guess Ford has a fleet program as well. So there's two different programs there where we're looking to save on. And what we're struggling with is how to purchase these vehicles and comply with the purchasing policy. Yeah. So what we saw in 2024 when we did the advertisement, and what we've seen with recent responses from vendors, is these dealerships, they really don't like to respond to these packages. They want to sell what's on their lot. When you send them something, say I need 6 or 8 of these with these special things on it, they don't have it, and they don't really want to do it. So we're going to look at approaching this a little bit differently, given some of the kind of the current, I guess, price savings going on relative to some of the tariff news nationally. We may look at trying to get quotes and bring some vehicles to the board in May for consideration, slightly outside of the way we would typically do it on the purchasing policy, but I think still getting quotes and still giving a competitive price, but allowing us to get those vehicles in a flexible way. So more to come on that. We're not asking you to do anything tonight on that, just a kind of an update. Also wanted to update the board on vehicle auctions. Now this is for the retired vehicles that we're not using anymore. We did end up purchasing, I believe, 4 vehicles last year. We had 5 that needed to be disposed of. The board approved the policy for vehicle disposal. We have followed that. We did an advertisement to both the members and to the public with a reserve that stated in the policy. We were able to sell 2 of the 5 vehicles. So we've still got 3 vehicles sitting across the street that we need to get rid of. We weren't able to sell them at the Kelly Blue Book number in the policy. We'd intended to do that in January, but then with the election and all that stuff that happened, we're still kind of sitting on these vehicles. So we'd like to go ahead and get rid of them. What we're thinking is we would do an auction, advertise that to the members and to the public, and we have basically 3 vehicles to attempt to sell. 1 doesn't run; it has engine issues, so we're thinking we would put a reserve on that of $500, auction it off. There's 2 others that are, I believe they're both 13 years old. They're 2010, 13, 14 years old.
I believe both of them are.
With significant mileage, more than 150,000 miles. And we're looking at doing that with a reserve of $1,000. So that's just kind of an informational item. I've kind of spoken with President Crumbly about that, and we think that's a good way to proceed, given that we had no interest when we did the reserve of the Kelly Blue Book value. So as stated, those things are sitting over there, and we kind of need to do something with them. So.
In the past, we've auctioned them off at one of our monthly meetings. Is that something we're going to consider
We certainly
doing?
can do that. I also talked about that with the board president, and we didn't really see the reason to combine those 2 things unless there was a desire from the board to do that. So we're flexible either way. The board thinks we should do it right before a board meeting or make it part of a board. We can certainly do that, but.
I had a question. Are we up this year for some more vehicles?
We are.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we're trying to get 6.
So there's 2 carryover from last year that we couldn't get because of the way we're doing things, and then we had slated 4 more this year. So,
because you're looking, are these new ones? You need boxes again? You trying to get boxes?
These are more the regular style pickup truck versus the utility bed. 250s.
Okay, so we're trying to replace just
correct
generic boxes.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. I wanted to wrap my head around that.
Yeah.
Mr. Krigler, if we're looking at this in May, does that give us enough time to make a decision under the wire before their employer discount rolls off?
Yeah, so it appears they're honoring that employer discount till June 2nd.
How much is it?
I don't know exactly percentage-wise. I feel
is it like
it's on the order of several $1,000.
Is it? Okay.
It's almost
worthwhile.
$5,000 per
it's a good
vehicle,
bit.
and
Okay.
then in some instances, they have an additional incentive on top of that.
Oh,
Right.
sometimes you work so hard to get, $100.
Right.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, our thing, if we can get that discount plus the fleet discount, get something local that's available on the dealerships, that's a
Yeah.
competitive way to do it.
I know we always try local, but man, sometimes that's not the solution.
Well-
Phil, where'd you have to go to get yours?
Georgia.
I mean, I've looked for vehicles
We got
sometimes,
here.
I put the range way out. and
Messi's
it's still-
vehicles were local.
We just waited and waited and
Yeah.
waited and waited and waited and waited
It is
and waited and waited.
annoying. It's annoying. I don't know if that's part of something we should
It's-
discuss.
Just looking at the internet with Crestview Ford being part of that step one group.
Yeah, definitely.
They have a pretty good selection coming in on what they have there, plus what they say is gonna arrive in the next few weeks. So, and of course,
Hopeful.
we'll look at the others, Pensacola, Fort Walton, but, they're limited.
Oh.
Gary Smith is privately owned, World Ford,
Mhm.
they just don't have a lot of trucks that fit our need for some reason, I don't know why.
Okay.
But it looks like, looking on the internet, that Crestview Ford could help us out.
All right, well, cool. Thank you.
And I personally, I don't see any reason that we would need to have an auction during a meeting, a monthly meeting. We could have it before or after. It would really have no impact whatsoever with the meeting itself.
I think as long as our members, know about it and have the opportunity to,
Right.
purchase the vehicle,
I understand.
that was the reason I think we used to do them at the meeting.
Just because there was already noticed.
Yeah, it was already a notice meeting that, members could come to, and usually there's a good crowd when we would have an auction.
Yeah. All right, Jeff, is that it?
That's all I have right now.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. We're going to move on to Director's Update. And Mr. Miller and Ms. Hardy were in the Financial Committee updates. Is there anything you want to speak to?
Were you gonna?
You want to do capital improvement first? That's Carmen.
Okay, we'll skip over.
Capital improvements. In the unrestricted area, we're at 3%, and the things that comprise the unrestricted capital improvement schedule are wastewater treatment items, and then what we talked about, software and the trucks. Going on to the restricted, that is where you see the Eglin reuse funding for that project, and also booster pumps for our wells, and that is at 8%, so all is well and good. That concludes my report.
Yeah, those are good numbers. All right, budget and O&M.
The budget committee meets once a month to compare how we're doing to our budget for this year, and pretty much all of our numbers were right in line with where they need to be at around 14 to 16% of the annual budget. So there was no real major anomalies. I think the biggest issue was the rate increase had not gone into effect during January and February. So those numbers were down a little bit, but expenses were down. So everything balanced out just fine, and we're on track. So good meeting, good report.
Nice. Pension 401k, Mr. Matthews.
No new update. I did look at the snapshot, and looks like we continue to save money, and people do their job.
We'll probably have a pension meeting in May. Most likely get our financial advisor and have a call meeting to look for that.
There you
go. The Regional Reuse Project, or the RIPS project, according to Mr. Krigler, everything's going very smooth. Construction is still continuing. No big changes there. The Club at Hidden Creek Management Board, Mr. Miller.
We went over a number of items at the Club at Hidden Creek board. Revenues are down, year to date, just because of a lot of the weather issues that they faced during January and February, and some heavy rain in March that also kept the greens fees and everything like that down, but expenses were also down, so that's good. They anticipate that with this beautiful weather that we're having here lately, it'll pick back up. The events revenue is doing really well. They're doing good at booking some events. There was a report of some vandalism to the bathrooms out there, and they're working to try to get that under control with some cameras and all that. But yeah, it's hated to hear that, but nevertheless, they've had some issues with that they're having to address. So anyway, but other than that, it was a good meeting, and course is doing well, and they're taking care of any issues that they have.
Okay, very good. Maybe put some motion lights out there at night.
I think they're looking at some cameras to try to deter any any future vandalism.
All right, municipal engineer. Oh, the next one is Fairpoint Regional Utility System Representative, Mr. Krigler.
Yeah, just reiterate some good news that we heard on Fairpoint. We received a $1 million grant from FDEP. The name of this program was Water Supply Pilot Grant, and it's for acquisition and development of 2 new wells for Fairpoint. So that was some good news we got, and we're making progress on those sites and getting test wells done. So that's kind of it for Fairpoint right now.
Okay, that's good news. Municipal Engineering Services Representative, Mr. Phillips.
We are continuing to stay really busy. We continue to not be able to find anyone to help. Story of our lives. And to follow up Kristen's report, part of the audit's the profit elimination. We will be writing a check, I don't think we've written the check yet, for $27,315.92 this year back to Holly Navarre.
Nice.
And for the new folks on the board, essentially at the end of the year, we try not to bill and receive any profit from Holly Navarre water system. Inevitably we do, even though we cut the rates. Because of the number of hours worked, we end up a little bit over. So every year when the audit's done, we perform that calculation and we write a check back.
All right. Thank you, Phil. All right. Next item on the agenda, Finance, review of February 2025 financials. Mr. Krigler.
All right. Let Barbara cover the February financials.
All right. Just to add a little bit to Mark's report, the total revenue was just under budget at 14%. The general administration expenses were just under budget at 15%. The water expenses were under budget at 15%. And wastewater expenses were under budget at 10%. So that's always great news to be under budget on expenses, but you don't want to be under budget on revenue.
Right.
But we'll get caught up. I'm confident in that. Only 2 other items. The board expenses was up a little bit only because of the extra election notices and
Right.
stuff, and the legal expenses, which I believe everyone is aware of.
Yep.
But other than that, everything else is pretty much aligned. Total revenue for the month of February was $1,133,378. Total expenses was $1,048,703, with a total operating income of $84,674. That concludes my report.
All right. Any questions for Barbara? All right. Staff recommends that we approve February 2025 financial statements. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve the February 2025 financial statements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the board? All right. We have a motion and a second to approve February 2025 financial statements. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. right. Thank you, Barbara, very much. Next item, award of bid, BT SCADA water wells. Mr. Krigler.
Yeah, so the next two items are both related to the implementation of our new SCADA system. This first one is on the water side. So we did budget, as part of last year's budget, for this year to install BT SCADA at Holly Navarre wells. Fairpoint wells are already on BT SCADA. So this, the scope of this work is essentially for some hardware and software and the implementation time by the vendor staff to install the equipment and also integrate the software and get the system set up. So we did bid this out, advertised for bids on March the 10th. We had one bidder. It was Automation Control Service, ACS as they're called. Their bid was for $146,100. We had budgeted $115,000 for this item as part of the 2025 budget, but as I'll discuss as part of the next item as well, we're going to cover that with the lift station wastewater collection budget for VT SCADA. When we combine these two items, we'll be within the budget. So we're recommending approval of this bid from ACS for $146,100 for VT SCADA at our 5 water wells.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
And a second. All right, we have a motion and a second. First of all, any further discussion from the board? Any questions? No? So we have a motion and a second to approve the bid from Automation Control Services for $146,100 for VT SCADA implementation at the 5 water wells that we have. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I have a question after this is said and done. In the future, we're working on 2 wells, correct, Mr. Krigler? We're working on seeding 2 new wells.
Oh, for Fairpoint, correct.
So those will be under Fairpoint's purview, correct? Okay.
Yeah.
So we won't have any of these coming up for us in the future.
It's unlikely we'd ever put a new well in Holly Navarre's area.
Okay.
We may replace one, but it's unlikely we'd ever do a new one.
And where I was going with that aligned with the next item, the controllers. So this one's going to cover 14. We would have, if we have 70 lift stations, do you have a controller at each lift station?
A few, not all 70. He's doing the majority of all the large and medium-sized stations. I don't have that exact number, but the really small stations he's not.
It's around a little over 30, I believe.
That's correct. We did install 16 last year of these controllers. Now we're doing 14 more this year. We had an item last fall, but I think we've got a.
And there will be a few more in the future, but I guess the total will probably be close to 70. But there's some that's just got the guard dog system we'll leave on it.
And where I was going with that is if we know that these are going to come up in the future, that would allow us to plan for either compiling a grant request or something to the benefactors who would be interested in things like this, like CISA, and I understand the Northwest Florida Water Management District's going to come out with a new grant program here probably in January. And in my conversation with them, they said that this would fall within the purview of their grant.
A good example is that $1 million we just talked about for Fairpoint. We applied for that last summer, and we just got notified of it, this past couple of weeks. So, it really needs to be tied to that budget process and that planning process, and that's what we intend to do with grant funding for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reynolds. Next item is sole source procurement motor controllers, Mr. Kriegler.
Yes, so we did add this. This was not on the draft agenda that went out 10 days before this meeting, but we did put it on in the packet and on the agenda for tonight, basically with some of the, I guess, concerns with material pricing and tariffs and things like that, this being electrical equipment. Staff wanted to get this going. There's a lead time on this equipment anyways. But essentially, as we talked about a little bit before we got to this item, we are standardizing on these EMC controllers for our lift stations. They're a better option for integrating VT SCADA in the future. We did replace several last year. We'll want to do 14 this year, and then the remainder in 2026, and we'll budget for that accordingly as well. We did budget $155,000 to be spent this year for this item. We're only proposing to buy 14 at this time for a total of $114,683.52. And that's what I was mentioning earlier, where these two items combined allow us to stay within our budgeted items for the two VT SCADA items for water wells and in our collection system. So no adjustment needed to the budget or anything. We're able to manage those two items.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes.
If whoever knows the most about these motor controllers, are there any energy-saving benefits of utilizing these, because we may be able to get some cost savings from an entity that looks at that?
My first understanding on that is the main energy source is the pumps themselves in a lift station. They take a lot of power, especially at our big stations. Actual controllers don't take a lot of power. Where you could have energy savings is if you have variable frequency drives on the station and you're able to adjust the speed based on your demand. And that's kind of an upgraded control system. These controllers will facilitate that, but they don't provide that functionality. That would be another step up. But I would say, the controls themselves are not the big power consumers. It's the motors themselves, the pumps themselves.
And at this time, I would just interject and say that we can look at a business evaluation by Florida Power and Light, who would come in and see where we could curb some energy costs as a whole. Would that be appropriate?
Yeah, and I think that could also be done in conjunction with the Florida Rural Water Association. I believe they provide energy audits to their members, so we can get one of those. And I think you'll find the large lift stations and equipment at the treatment plant, the wastewater treatment plant, are the big consumers of energy.
What's that power bill?
It's about, all total for the water system, I think it runs around $42,000 a month.
Yeah.
It used to be around 30, but,
Meter.
things have gone up.
Yeah.
Never stop spinning.
Any indication of which one of those would be more advantageous, Mr. Kriegler, to Holly Navarre Water System, utilizing the Florida Rural Water Association's evaluation?
Yeah, if they'll come and do the energy audit, that would be more targeted to what we do. Whereas FPL, they deal with all types of customers. So if Florida Rural Water will come and provide that, they may have some really good recommendations about ways we can save energy.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Reynolds. All right, staff is recommending that we approve the sole source purchase of 14 SEL motor controllers from EMC in the amount of $114,683.52. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any questions? All in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, motion passes. Next item, engineering. Mr. Phillips, you have anything?
Just real quickly, Clinton's water loss looks good. We continue to have that large I&I issue, but we continue to see or not be able to find where we're pumping that, which would lead you to believe, as we discussed last time, that we have something else going on internal to the plant, wastewater treatment plant, or something else. And Mark's been scratching his head trying to figure out exactly what that is, whether we've got some unmetered flow or something else is going on, so he continues to work on it.
It's been high for a couple of months.
Yeah, 3 or 4 months now, Mark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We did cut some off. We found where
yeah,
some flow was going that wasn't being recorded, so.
but it's still appreciable. 300,000 gallons a day
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
month. But we just don't see it when we calculate the flow coming out of the lift station, the water used. We're not seeing big discrepancies in that, which would lead you to believe we're picking it up somewhere else. And none of the flow that arrives at the plant comes to the plant without going through a lift station first. So, you would think you'd see it somewhere. So somewhere we've got something going on that we haven't had, and it's fairly dry. It's not like you could point to a single day or two of rainfall and say that's the whole month right there. When you look at the wastewater treatment flow on a daily basis, it's more continuous, and we don't even have a groundwater problem right now, really and truly, in the system. So we're a little bit confounded, if you want to know the truth. So, I suspect, we all already kind of know a couple things where we've been treating a lot more sludge than we have, and we probably have a larger unmetered use at the plant to run that belt press than we've had in the past. But that really doesn't account for 300,000 gallons a day either. So we scratching our head. Like I said, I know Mark's really scratching his head. He's spending a lot of time trying to figure it out. So we'll find it.
There you go.
Anything with any of these big projects that are going on that could contribute to that, or,
No, that's, always, again, you would expect to catch that in your lift stations.
Mhm.
I mean, you know where your problem children are in the franchise area that might occasionally get a little carried away with what they're doing. And no, none of it seems to be an issue. And this is the wrong time of year for the people that get carried away for it to be showing up. This is not when you expect to get it. So, I don't know. We'll figure it out, though.
Thank you, Phil. We appreciate that update. And, AJ, was there anybody that signed up, the member form?
No,
All right, no one signed up. Is there any member that wants to, all right, Mr. Bill Thiel is going to address the board.
Bill Thiel, 2842 PGA. Gentlemen, Mr. President, I would just like, I understand that there's been another lawsuit filed at March 25th or something against Holly Navarre. I guess I'm probably an age-related thing here, but I'm kind of a little bit confused, and I would like an update if you could give me on what happened to there's been 2 or 3 previous lawsuits filed, I guess, and I think those have been resolved, and if so, what the results were. I think the members would like to know.
Okay.
And I would also wonder if Mr. Dunaway could provide us with, I know he's going to respond to the most recent one, what's the sequence of events where we finally get a resolution. I mean, there comes a point where we're negating the past election is OBE'd, and I think that probably occurs about in August.
Right.
And I don't see this is going to happen by then, but
Okay.
anyway.
Well, I will defer this one to our attorney, Mr. Will Dunaway.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, in response to Mr. Thiel's question, there was a previous motion filed for an injunction, and the judge dismissed that. So there was, you could call that a lawsuit. There was a litigation ensued. It was an injunction that was filed, that injunction was dismissed. There was a new complaint filed by the same plaintiff, and that complaint was served on March the 28th. And a copy is in at tab 3, as I indicated, and it's public record, and it is the lawsuit which I commented on earlier. So there's been the motion and now this complaint. This complaint will be answered on Thursday, meaning 2 days from today, and then we'll seek hearing before the judge.
Okay, thank you for that update. I just
All right.
thought the members deserved.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that, Mr. Thiel. If no one else wants to address the board, we've come to that time of night.
Mr. President, I have a question before we close.
Okay.
Yes, at our last meeting, we discussed the elevated pricing for insurance, and we have so many different types and categories. Mr. Krigler, when do you envision bringing a recommendation before the board as to which way we should go on the insurance posture?
So the policies for the different entities and also some of the individual policies expire at different times throughout the year. The main Holly Navarre renewal is coming up in July, so we need to consider it before then. I believe we do actually have a meeting tomorrow with our insurance agent to go over values and things like that, but we'll be talking to him about kind of big picture stuff as well. So I would anticipate we'd be planning for the June board meeting for the board to consider the Holly Navarre package. But yeah, we're having discussions, starting now about options. Of course, like we talked about in the board training, the wind is always a big topic and a big cost driver. So we'll have to look at what we want to do there.
Thank you.
We've discussed trying to align these renewal dates. Are we getting anywhere with trying to do that so that you don't have these insurances renewing it,
A little bit. I think all the messy policies are August 1, so we're kind of good there. Most Holly Navarre is July 1. The club seems to be the most kind of spread out still, I think. But we do have that discussion when they come up. Can we get maybe what you have to do is, I guess, like get an 18-month policy to get to line it up and stuff. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we do talk about that as these come up.
Seems like that would make things a whole lot easier.
If they all, yes,
Yeah.
they all came on the same date for sure.
Is there anyone else that wants to address the board? If you don't mind, come up to the podium. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dean Doyle. Sorry I didn't fill out the sign-in sheet. It's my first time also here, and I didn't know really what to do.
No problem.
But I live right behind at 8537 Misty Ridge Lane.
Okay.
With the new fence that's just being put up. I've been here since 2019. I've never had any issues with the water facility or anything like that. With the fence being up, there's never been any issues with the fence being the way that it is. I think a year and a half ago, I don't know what the reasoning was, but everyone changed the whole fence around the perimeter of y'all's facility, and I think it changed my whole fence, but with the oak tree in the backyard that separates our two properties. I've had that last storm come through with the the tornado and everything like that. I've had $1,000 worth of property damage to my backyard. I'm not saying it's from that tree, but with I've never had any issues with it until that was all changed. I've talked to Mark, the facility gentleman that has put the fence in, and he boxed off the tree. He's been working with me very well over the last year. The last year, he gave me the options of how we're going to do the fence, which I had no issues with it. We ran it straight across, which is what it was originally. I had no issues with it. But this last time when the fence just went down from the tornado that I'd never touched, now we're boxing off that tree, and now the tree is fully invisible of my property. I just want to see if there's any issues that or any concern with me to see if we can kind of resolve a little bit of the fence issue in that way.
We certainly would be willing to work with you. Absolutely. I'm glad to hear that he's working with you already.
He is. He's
Yeah,
been amazing.
absolutely. That would be something that we could take.
Yeah, I need to look into, is the concern the tree itself or the location of the fence?
The fence has been fine. I just don't like the look of it where it goes around the tree now. And I think the issues be, the last year is either the fence gets pushed onto y'all's property 5-6 feet, or it gets pushed onto my property 5-6 feet. And I didn't like either one of those because I didn't want the tree on my side and I'd have to take care of it.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to lose 5 feet of my yard. So the resolve was to, Mr. Mark put the tree, or the fence up parallel with the tree. And I think with that tornado or something, the tree went down because it was a bigger span, so we couldn't put the pilings in. So then the resolved issue was to box out the tree. And now, I'm not saying there was, I wasn't informed that it was going to be that way. And I just want to see if we can try and fix it that way.
Okay.
If the tree has to come down, or we can go back to the original thing. I know there's issues with the tree still growing, and can mess up the fence in the future. But I've never had any issues with it before until everything was made a year and a half ago.
David, the fence is the tree is quite large.
Yeah. So I think it's an oak tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he had, Mark had originally, when he rebuilt that fence back there, because it's rotten, starting to fall down. So you can't set a fence post next to that tree because the roots are just too bad. So he actually cut a little notch in the tree to keep the fence kind of lined up on our property and lag bolted some 2x into that for stringers and built the fence to the tree. When the tornado came through, of course, you know, it's pretty violent wind. It snapped the heads off the lag bolts that was holding the stringers on. And so he thought it'd be a better concept to just box out around a tree and set posts where he could. And so he, kind of made a half triangle around the tree. It's on our property, not on his, but, I guess he just don't like the look of the box around the tree. I mean, we could go back with it to the tree.
I mean, it sounds like there's only so many options here.
There's not many.
Yeah.
Right.
Either box it in, like you said, where we're taking some of your property, or box it in where we're, like it is currently. Is there?
Yeah, I think
can we
everything's
look
on
at
our, I think everything's on our property. I believe the tree, I don't have the map in front of me, but I
Okay.
believe the tree is on our property as well, just probably right at the property line. So I think the option would be to try to span it again, or take the tree down, or leave it as is. So we kind of need to look at those options and maybe see what we've done in the past and what those would
Okay.
cost and all that.
And the tree's rotten?
The tree is not rotten.
No.
Oh, it's not rotten?
No, the fence is
rotten.
rotten.
Okay.
That's why that tree.
But,
Okay.
When can we get have a meeting and see if we can come up with something
Sure,
that's
absolutely.
fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not a problem.
Okay.
Anything works, I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem. Do we have your information?
No, sir.
Mark, we know where you live, and Mark's been talking to us.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll get.
Yeah, we want to be a good
We'll reach
neighbor,
out to you
and
then.
we'll talk with you.
Yeah, we'll do our best to work with you for sure.
And I will point out that tree is doing a lot of functions. It's preventing the erosion, it's holding the ground together, and things of that nature. So if that tree is no longer there, it's going to change not only the topology, but the hydrology over there, so.
Sure. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Motion, I have a second. Meeting is now adjourned.